welcome all into the MO podcast. As always, you're here with me, Contumacious Ann.
And me, Atreya.
And on the 8th day of the Nightmares Before Xmas, my true love gave to me a near disaster on flight 53. I know.
Xmas?
Yeah.
You've changed it.
No, it's
Through me now.
Xmas.
You said Christmas. Now you've said Xmas. Changing the format.
Right.
We didn't discuss this.
Okay, sorry. It's the same. Okay. It's day 8, right? I tried to rhyme that as well, but that was completely overlooked. Anyway.
I saw that it was rhymed. You just
We
we
gave
didn't have a
up.
board meeting about you changing the format. So
Right, fine, fair enough. Right. So, since the mid-90s, in the UK at least, cheap airlines have held sway over short-haul flights to all corners of Europe. But back in the day, you wouldn't have had a choice whether you took your life in your own hands with Wizz Air or Jet2, because the majority of flights to Europe from the UK were conducted by British Airways. In the early 90s, British Airways had the largest fleet of aircrafts in the world, and it advertised itself as the world's favourite airline.
it's got to be better than Ryanair.
Well, yeah, I mean, there wasn't much competition back then, to be quite frank with you. And even today, there's not really much, unless you're going on...
People complain about Ryanair after they've taken a holiday. It's like, I don't know what you're expecting. It's Ryanair.
This is the thing. This is what really pisses me off about people giving out about Ryanair, EasyJet, all this shit. It's like you pay 25 quid for your flight. Do you know
don't know
what I
what you're
mean?
expecting.
It's like a taxi back from town to your house, but you're going
Yeah.
to another country where it's warm.
It's actually cheaper
Yeah.
than a taxi back from town to my house.
What's your fucking issue with it? Like,
Yeah. You're not going to get luxury.
no. So, like today, Spain was one of the most popular destinations with British passengers at the start of the 90s. Mainly, these trips were sold in packages that included the flights, the hotels, and then some services like bed and breakfast, board, or whatever. I mean, that is still the case probably today, but with Ryanair and EasyJet, they don't really offer that. It's just a flight there and then fuck off, deal with it yourself kind of thing.
Yes.
But it was on the 10th of June 1990 that British Airways flight 5390 was ready to make this journey to Spain out of Birmingham Airport. The flight would be made by a BAC 111 series 528FL jet airliner that was capable of carrying 119 passengers, but on this occasion the flight was just over half full. This particular...
That would worry me. I wouldn't get on a flight that was less than like 350 people because I'd be like, I don't know, I like them small flights.
Yeah, I mean, it kind of gets worse because this particular jet had been in use for 19 years already by this point. And BA did have plans to phase out all BAC 111 jets in the coming years, but should have done it sooner. The captain, Timothy Lancaster, and his co-pilot Alistair Atchison had over 18,000 hours of flight time between them, and over 2,000 of them hours were in this particular aircraft. So they were seasoned veterans to this kind of thing. And after performing a routine takeoff, both pilots released their shoulder harnesses and took off their seatbelts. I hope to God they pressed that button first, your seatbelt button, or else that's just one rule for them, one rule for us, and it's just not on.
To be fair, I think people were probably still smoking like back in the main cabin back then in the 90s.
So this is the thing. This was a smoking flight. So
there you go.
The cabin crew were getting ready for meal service, and they just flicked on the take your seatbelts off, start smoking, and probably 100 out of the 119 passengers, probably about 79 all started fucking lighting up their duty-free Benson and Hedges.
Probably more than that back in the 90s.
Yeah, straight away. Now, flight attendant Nigel Ogden entered the cockpit, and as soon as he entered, there was a sudden loud bang. An inrushing of air, and the cabin quickly filled up with condensation. The left window screen panel had blown out, into the blue beyond. And because Lancaster, like a clever fucker, had removed anything and everything that would keep him in his seat, he'd also flew out the window. Now, luckily enough, dependent...
Are the windows that big for... He must have been really small.
So
like a bit weedy.
So it's like...
Or was it a big window?
Even if it is, like I'm just looking at my monitor there, a 24-inch monitor, with the air pressure, it will suck you out of there.
Aye, true. I suppose it could have just broken his shoulder blades, couldn't it, to suck him out?
Yeah, but he had nothing to hold him down, so he just went, whoop. But, luckily enough, or depending on which way you want to look at it, Lancaster was only halfway out the plane, as his legs had been caught around the flight stick. This saved him from certain death, but it kind of put the plane in a death spiral. The autopilot hadn't been turned on at this point, so the plane was going in a steep nosedive because it was responding to Lancaster's knees on going fully forward. Now, just so, not only were they in the death dive with the captain halfway outside the window, being exposed to -degrees wind chill, his head was bouncing off the fuselage. The door to the cabin had blown inwards and it was covering the flight console. So even the co-pilot couldn't reach any of the stuff on the flight console, so they couldn't slow it down.
That's a design failure, isn't it?
Yes, a lot of this is like, it just seems mental. Like,
or is it though? Maybe it was deliberately, the door opened deliberately from the inside so nobody could be on the outside. You know, where they put the chair up against the door so you can't get out?
Yeah.
Maybe it was deliberate.
Yeah. But
they should have had a sliding door.
Yeah. But the door's blown in.
The problem.
Covered it. Now, Ogden reacted first. He grabbed hold of Lancaster's belt. I mean, a male flight attendant. He had no chance to pull him back in due to the pressure, but he managed to stop him disappearing completely. Now...
Was he not dead at this point?
Not yet. In another twist of you could not fucking make this up, none of the passengers had oxygen masks. There was no oxygen on board. So none of them little flight fucking dances that they do at the beginning, the flight attendants, would have helped them because none of the masks dropped down. So
they weren't there? They didn't have, the plane didn't have oxygen masks, or they just didn't drop down?
On this flight, they didn't have oxygen masks for the passengers.
Why?
I have no idea. It could have been a design fault, and this is the reason why BA would try to phase out this plane.
A design fault? That's like putting no lifeboats on the Titanic. Fucking Jesus Christ.
Yeah. So basically, the passengers were just told to adopt the brace position and kiss their ass goodbye.
Put your head between your knees and kiss your ass goodbye.
Yeah, hope for the best. Atchison began an emergency descent, which, in fairness, they were kind of already in, due to Lancaster being pressed up against that. But he tried to control the descent and get the plane to an altitude with sufficient air pressure so that passengers at least could breathe and they could kind of like sort out shit that was going on. When they got to a safe
altitude... They all reached for their hand luggage with their duty free.
Yeah, I'd be on the vodka, like, fuck it, going down with a drink. So when they got to a safe altitude and the pressure was established, Atchison engaged the autopilot and tried to make a distress call. Now, due to all the inrushing air that was swirling around his ears, he could make the distress call, but he couldn't hear anything that was being said back to him. So, kind of pointless, really.
We need some help! Please!
Now, by this point, Ogden was cream crackered, and because he'd been holding on to Lancaster's belt for so long, two of the flight attendants stepped up. They took over pants duty on Lancaster and stopped him, at least from being sucked off.
I'm sorry. just like this poor captain is like literally like outside the plane, like poof, poof, his head on the and like blah, all the time, and this flight steward's just like, oh, but my arm's aching. Can take over?
You're a bit tired.
It's gone dead on the elbow, though, isn't it? Oh. Maybe I could can I tack him somewhere?
Yeah, so, I mean, maybe Ogden had main character syndrome, who knows. But although Lancaster had actually been stopped from leaving the plane altogether, he had moved further outside, and now his head was being repeatedly smashed off the metal of the outside of the craft. They actually thought he was dead at this point, but they didn't want to let the body go out into the great beyond because it could hit the engine.
Because he was plugging the big hole. Oh.
So this was one of the reasons
Okay.
they said he could hit the engine and then they'd be all be fucked. So just keep hold of the dead person and then we can laugh.
I think it was because he was plugging the big hole, so none of the others got sucked out.
So Atchison finally managed to hear over the radio that he was given clearance to land at Southampton Airport. And after 35 minutes of being in the air, flight 5390 landed safely. Now, amazingly enough, the only casualties were Lancaster, who had 3 fractures in his arms and hands. He'd suffered from shock and he had a frostbite. And Ogden, who had bruising and scratches, but he would go on to suffer PTSD later on, which kind of unsurprising, really, when you've just seen a captain sucked off in front of you.
And a dead arm.
Yeah. Now, the cause of this whole fucking thing was... Now, this may be me just paraphrasing, but from what I've read into it, is basically an engineer that refused to wear their fucking glasses at work. So, this engineer had reinstalled the window pane, but...
Missed 2 screws.
No, he'd reinstalled them with the screws that were a size too small and couldn't hold up to the air pressure. So after this, they found many, many issues with the Birmingham Airport and BA. But one of the main things was that engineers should wear prescribed glasses when they're working on the job. That was one of the main takeout lines from this.
Do you know what it is, though? Do you not think maybe, even if he didn't need to wear glasses, that he was just like hung over as shit and just kind of like, fuck it, these screws will do. As long as the window's screwed down, does it really matter? Like when you build an IKEA, I know it's not the same as a plane, but when you build an IKEA shelf, if you're missing a couple of screws, you make do with a couple of little ones you find in the, the drawer your shit drawer that holds everything. You're just like that'll fucking do. Maybe it was just that. Maybe the guy was just like, that'll fucking do. It's screwed down. Does it even need to be the right size screws? Nah, probably not. It's screwed in. It'll be fine.
Yeah. I mean, to be fair, it's Birmingham. I'm amazed they didn't use a hammer and nails just to fucking fix it in. Fuck it. It's
PVA
done.
glue. Duct tape.
But yeah, so for nigh on 20 minutes, a pilot was getting his head smashed against the outside of a flight.
That's a conversation starter, though, isn't it? He'll never have a shit dinner party.
It is, yeah, definitely. But I mean, again, we go back to how we started out. All the people at Ryanair moaning. I bet all these fuckers on this flight were moaning as shit. Like, oh, what's going to Costa del Sol? Look,
Probably, yeah.
No.
Can we at least have a fag? Yes, actually, we've got great ventilation now.
Yeah. Plenty of air coming through here now. Get out. Get your cigars and pipes going. You've got a bong on the go here. Jesus.
I'm a bit nippy. Can I have one of them horrible blankets, please? Is there any reason it's so cold? Can you turn the heating up? Yeah, we got a pilot halfway out the window. The window blew out.
Can you close that door?
Can I have 2 blankets?
Close that door. I can't. It's actually halfway out the airplane.
Oh, I love it.
So yeah, that was near disaster on flight 539 5390 in the early 90s. This has been the MO podcast with me, Consummacious Ant.
And me, Atreya.
Thank you all so much for joining us, and we shall see you next time. Bye.
Bye. That could have been me, you know. My family used to fly to Spain with British Airways all the time. Oh, we're good.
The MO podcast. The MO podcast. The MO podcast. The MO podcast.